My name is Charles Mazzarella, or Chuck Mazzarella, and I am making this video because I'm passionate about the subject. This may be the most I ever do about this subject, but there's a very good chance I may do more than just make this video. But I figured it's what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about desalination. What is that? Desalination, desalination is the process of taking salt water, or taking the salts and minerals out of ocean saline salt water and converting it to fresh drinking water. From my limited internet research, I found out that that process uses a lot of energy. Desalination uses a lot of energy to convert salt water to fresh water. And I guess every time there is a leftover called brine that is, I guess, almost unusable. The brine is left over and I guess gotten rid of somehow, maybe diluted in rivers, or maybe it's pumped back out into the ocean. If a gallon of salt water is converted into fresh water, perhaps as little as half a gallon of fresh water is produced. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a scientist. I'm just talking about what I read online from various somewhat reputable sources. I can attach whatever sources that I have to Facebook, because this video will definitely be put onto Facebook and YouTube. So anyway, it's not about the process of desalinization, or desalination. It's not about the process of, I'm not talking about why it is used. I want to know why countries, businesses, governments are not individuals. Why isn't the process used more? Desalination, the process of taking the salt and minerals out of salt water to convert to fresh water. Why is it not being used on a more frequently? Since the turn of this century, from what I understand, the process has increased tremendously, but you don't hear about it in the news. It's not talked about on any of the major networks in America, or CNN, or whatever else. And it should be. This process is being used in San Diego, and is being used in the Middle East, throughout the Middle East, by about a half a dozen or a dozen countries there, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Obviously, they're desert countries. Their access to fresh water is limited. They're surrounded by salt water. It makes sense to convert the salt water to fresh water, that their people can grow plants, but that the people can drink water on a daily basis. Now, of course, there are aquifers underground that are being used today, and have been for 100 years, as a source of fresh water. There are reservoirs, freshwater rivers, but the Great Lakes, etc. And if all this can be converted into safe, clean drinking water, then that's good. But I think our use of these sources is almost being exceeded. Excuse me. Let's say our consumption is going to exceed the use of this water. In fact, what I'm trying to say is we have such a great demand for fresh water, as every person on the planet needs it to live, and every animal on the planet needs it to live, and every plant on the planet needs it to live. It's used for, in agriculture and to feed animals that we eventually consume. All of the water that is being used in just those areas, not just to wash your car or to, you know, have a green lawn, etc. Yes, there's a lot of waste of water, and that is a sad thing. Um, but just our consumption of water probably would, or it has the potential to dry up a lot of the sources of fresh water. So, as a result, if there's not a lot of rain that comes down, we will have a water shortage, and that's what seems to be happening according to this TV show Vice that's on HBO. Today's episode of Vice from March 4th, 2016, the last half of the half-an-hour program talked about water shortages and what's being done. It didn't go into depth, obviously. It didn't talk about desalination or desalination of use, but it should. That's one of the reasons why I'm making this video, is I would like more people to talk about it, professionals, experts, and ultimately, what would be nice is if governments, wealthy individuals, countries in general, invested in this technology, despite the cost and despite the amount of energy that is needed to convert salt water to fresh water. Why? Now, some people might say, well, the world revolves around money. But if you look beyond that, and it's at the humanitarian aspect of life, why it shouldn't matter the cost involved. If let me just say this: despite the fact that it's going to be expensive, build these plants anyway, because ultimately it will help many millions of people to not die from dehydration. There are many people in the world that live in horrible living conditions. They're, just think of the basic needs we have every day, right? We need to have a reliable source of water, good and healthy food, supplements if we don't get all of our nutrition from food. We have to have some type of a roof over our heads, clothing, and use of bathrooms, right, that are clean, etc. And the conversion of our waste into water that can be used again in the toilet, the cleaning of the waste, etc. So there are countries in this world that live below the standards that we Americans and other people around the world live at. Like, most of the world lives at a high rate of living. But as I would say, there's a lot of people in the world, maybe 47%, whatever, I don't know. 25% of the world they just get by every day. And I don't know what the number is. I just know that I visited a country and I saw how people lived there in that particular city, in that country, and this was over almost 20 years ago. Haiti. I was in Haiti, and I got to see how deplorable it is in Cité Soleil, and that Haiti is considered, or probably still is, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. But anyway, um, people shouldn't have to live like that, and but they do, and they get by. And so, wouldn't it be amazing and helpful and like awesome to help these people out, help ourselves out, help the people of Flint, Michigan out, to where we would always have a fresh source of water, and in addition to tag this on, or to add this on, it would be nice to have, you know, for everyone in the world, of course, um, supply of food and these basic needs fulfilled, like the sanitation of wastewater. India, some parts of India and Africa, I imagine, um, don't have this, and inadvertently, sometimes their water supply is contaminated by the waste they produce. So they get sick, dysentery and malaria and whatever else. And, you know, I know malaria is contracted from mosquitoes, but whatever happens to people in regions of the world that don't have as much money as others do. I'm not proposing some utopia for the world or world government or anything like that. I'm just stating there are people that live worse than you do every day, let's say, or than I do every day. I have water nearby. I, we have a lot of people have a fresh source of water and they don't have to worry about these things. Some people live, extreme lives, and others, extremely cushy lives and comfortable lives, and others don't. And it would, obviously, it would be nice to help the people of the world, but this is getting off my subject. My subject is desalination, and why, despite the costs involved and the energy that's used to convert salt water to fresh water, why aren't we hearing about this in the news? Why isn't it being used more often? And besides in San Diego that I know of, in the Middle East, wherever else, in the Netherlands or something, etc. It should be used everywhere, on every coast of every country in the world that can afford it, right? If not, if they can't afford it, then maybe water can be produced by the UN, let's say, and given to the countries that need it, that can't afford desalination. But whatever, maybe these costs need to come down. It's a subject that needs to be talked about more often and in more volume, and that's why I made this video. No one in the world, no one on Earth should go a day without fresh drinking water. And this desalination process should become universal, because we live on a planet that's 70% water, and there should be no droughts. There should be no water shortage. So please talk about this. If you want to offer a retort on video here, or an explanation of why desalination plants are not being used, please do so. But the ultimate statement would be, if there's a process known as desalination that can convert salt water to fresh water, then we have an endless supply of fresh water at our disposal from the oceans, and no one should have to ever be concerned or go without fresh water. So please address this issue, and may we talk about it more. May it be on the news. May there be programs dedicated to this, little specials or whatever on TV, on CNN, on Fox, on whatever, that people could watch, and so we could learn about it. And then, but also, action needs to be taken. Build these plants despite the cost, convert salt water to fresh water, that this is a non-subject. Please make this happen. Thank you.